The champagne glass slipped from my fingers. Not because I was clumsy, not because I'd had too much to drink, but because my husband, Thaddeus Langston IV, the man I'd built an empire with, just said 5 words that would destroy everything we'd ever created. I'd rather kiss my dog. The ballroom at the Windsor estate went silent. 200 of Connecticut's wealthiest elites stopped mid-conversation. The orchestra's violin screeched to a halt. And me? I stood there in my $40,000 Valentino gown, lipstick perfectly applied, hands still reaching for his face, frozen like a statue while laughter, cruel, vicious laughter, erupted around me. But here's what nobody knew. I wasn't the broken wife they thought I was. I was the woman who'd been waiting 6 years for this exact moment, and I was about to burn his entire world to ashes. Before we get into how I destroyed the most powerful man in Connecticut, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you've ever been underestimated, and subscribe because this story gets wild. Trust me, you won't see this ending coming. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 3 years earlier, I was Lennox Ashford, not Lennox Langston, just Lennox, a girl from Providence, Rhode Island, who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. My mom worked 3 jobs. My dad, he left when I was 6, and I learned early that the only person you could count on was yourself. I put myself through Yale on scholarships and loans. Graduated summa cum laude in finance. Wore the same black blazer to every interview until the elbows started fraying. I was hungry, not for food, though there were plenty of ramen nights, but for something bigger, something that proved I mattered. That's when I met Thaddeus. He walked into that Manhattan investment firm like he owned the oxygen in the room. 6'3", platinum cufflinks, hair that probably cost more to maintain than my entire wardrobe. Old money. The kind of money that whispered instead of shouted. "You're the analyst who caught the Berkshire discrepancy?" he asked, not even looking up from his phone. "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. Makes me feel ancient." Finally, those steel gray eyes met mine. "I'm 32, not 70. Call me Thad." I should have known right then. Men like Thaddeus Langston didn't notice women, like me, unless they wanted something. Turns out, he wanted my brain. Within 6 months, I'd helped him close a $600 million deal that his father, Thaddeus Langston III, patriarch of the Langston dynasty, had called impossible. Within a year, Thad proposed, not with flowers and romance, with a partnership agreement disguised as a prenup. "You're brilliant, Lennox," he said over sushi at Masa, casual as ordering tuna. "My family needs fresh blood, someone who actually knows how money moves in this century. Marry me, help me modernize Langston Holdings, and I'll make you richer than you ever dreamed." I was 26, stupid, hungry. I said yes. The wedding was in the Hamptons, 400 guests, ice sculptures, a dress that weighed more than my childhood dreams. His mother, Cordelia Langston, looked at me like I was a stain on her antique furniture. "She's quaint." I heard her tell Thad's Aunt Millicent, "Give her time, Cordy. Even feral cats can be trained." I smiled through it all. Smiled when his fraternity brothers made jokes about Thad marrying down for once. Smiled when his sister Vivian asked if I knew which fork to use at formal dinners. I smiled because I had a plan too. I'd outwork every single one of them. I'd prove my worth. I'd become indispensable. And for 3 years, I did exactly that. I restructured their entire investment portfolio. Identified tax havens they'd been too lazy to exploit. Fired deadweight executives who'd been coasting on family connections for decades. I turned their stuffy, dying legacy into a modern powerhouse. Langston Holdings went from $2.1 billion to $5.8 billion in valuation. Because of me, my spreadsheets, my strategy, my sleepless nights while Thad was at business dinners that smelled like perfume and lies. And how did he repay me? "Lennox, handle the Pritchard account. I'm golfing with Senator Whitmore." "Lennox, my mother wants a fundraiser organized. You're good at that servant stuff." "Lennox, can you stop talking shop at dinner? You're embarrassing yourself." Every year, I became less of a wife and more of an employee. One he didn't even pay. But I stayed. You know why? Because leaving would mean admitting I'd failed, that the girl from Providence wasn't good enough for their world, and I refused to give them that satisfaction. 6 months before the kiss heard round Connecticut, I found the first piece of evidence, a receipt. Stupid, right? In the age of cryptocurrency and offshore accounts, Thad left a paper receipt in his Tom Ford suit pocket. The Clement Hotel, presidential suite, $3,400. We'd been in Boston that weekend. For separate meetings, he'd said. I could have confronted him right there, screamed, cried, thrown his custom Italian loafers off our penthouse balcony. Instead, I smiled, kissed his cheek, and started building my case. You see, 3 years of managing the Langston fortune taught me something valuable. Rich people are careless because they think they're untouchable. Thad had 7 different bank accounts I wasn't supposed to know about. Investments in his assistant's name. Persephone Carlyle, a 24-year-old blonde who just wanted to learn from the best. I knew about the apartment in Tribeca, the one registered under an LLC I'd accidentally discovered while reviewing quarterly filings. I knew about the $180,000 in consulting fees paid to a shell company that didn't actually exist. I documented everything. Screenshots, printed statements, audio recordings from my phone accidentally left on during his study sessions with Persephone. And I waited, because revenge isn't a meal best served cold. It's a meal best served when they're choking on their own arrogance. The Windsor Estate Charity Gala was the event of the Connecticut social season. Old money rubbing elbows with new money, everyone pretending they cared about underprivileged youth while sipping $800 champagne. I wore red that night, blood red, a Valentino gown that cost more than my mother made in a year. Hair up, diamonds borrowed from Cordelia's collection. She'd insisted I represent the family properly. Thad barely looked at me in the car ride over. Remember, don't monopolize anyone's time with your little business talk, he said, checking his reflection. Tonight's about connections, not spreadsheets. Of course, darling. He didn't notice the edge in my voice. He never did. The ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars. A marble floor so polished you could see your soul's reflection or lack thereof. Thad worked the room like the predator he was. Handshakes, backslaps, that practice laugh that made powerful men feel like they were in on the joke. And there, by the champagne fountain, was Persephone. She wore white, obviously, hair cascading in perfect waves. Young, dewy, everything I'd apparently stopped being at 29. Our eyes met across the ballroom. She smirked. She actually smirked. That's when I knew tonight was the night. The orchestra struck up a waltz around 9 p.m. Couples flooded the dance floor. Senator Whitmore with his wife, the Vanderbilts, even Cordelia with some judge she was probably bribing. I walked up to Thad, extended my hand. Dance with me? He looked annoyed. Actually annoyed. I'm networking, Lennox. Can't you see I'm talking to? One dance. I interrupted, smiling at the 3 executives he'd been schmoozing. I promised to return him intact, gentlemen. They laughed. Thad's jaw tightened, but social pressure won. He took my hand like it was a dead fish. We stepped onto the floor. His hand on my waist felt obligatory. Mine on his shoulder felt like touching ice. You're making a scene, he hissed under his breath. I'm dancing with my husband. Scandalous. After this, I need you to entertain Cordelia's friends. They keep asking where you are. Of course. Wouldn't want to neglect my duties. The music swelled. We turned, surrounded by Connecticut's finest. People were watching us. The golden couple. The merger of old money and new ambition. I leaned in, lips parted, going for a kiss, exactly like a wife would. And that's when Thaddeus Langston made the biggest mistake of his life. He jerked back like I tried to stab him. Not a gentle pull away. A full recoil. Disgust written across his face. And then, loud enough for everyone within 20 feet to hear. I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you. The music didn't stop immediately, but conversations did. Heads turned. Whispers started like wildfire. He kept going. Honestly, Lennox, you don't even meet my standards anymore. This desperation, it's embarrassing. For both of us. Someone giggled, then someone else. Then full-blown laughter erupted from his fraternity brother, Kingswell Hampton. "Damn, Thad. Brutal," Kingswell shouted. More laughter, like I was a joke. A punchline. The girl from Providence who thought she belonged at the ball. Thad's eyes were cold. He didn't even look sorry. Just annoyed that I dared interrupt his evening. The orchestra had stopped now. 200 people stared at us. At me. My hand was still raised where his face had been. I could feel Cordelia's satisfied smile from across the room. Persephone's barely contained glee. Vivian's phone already recording. This was it. The moment they'd been waiting for. The moment I'd break. Cry. Run out of the ballroom in shame. The moment that proved I never belonged. But instead I smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a broken smile. A smile so wide, so genuine, that Thad's confidence flickered for just a second. "You'd rather kiss your dog?" I repeated, loud and clear. "That's interesting, Thaddeus. Because your standards certainly didn't stop you from kissing Persephone Carlyle in the presidential suite of the Clement Hotel. Multiple times, actually." The room went silent. Persephone's face drained of color. Thad's shock was beautiful. Pure, unfiltered shock. I continued, voice carrying across the marble floor. "They also didn't stop you from embezzling $2.3 million through fake consulting fees, or hiding assets in 7 offshore accounts, or committing securities fraud that'll have the SEC very interested come Monday morning." Now the gasps weren't mocking. They were horrified. I reached into my clutch, red, matching my dress, and pulled out a USB drive. Everything's on here. Bank statements, hotel records, emails between you and Persephone planning this whole charade. Audio of you discussing how that Providence trash would never figure it out. I held it up like a trophy. "Did you know your study has terrible soundproofing, darling?" Thad's face went from shock to rage. "You're lying. Am I?" I looked directly at Persephone. "Want to tell everyone what Thad promised you, sweetheart? About how once he divorced a boring wife. You be the new Mrs. Langston, or should I play the recording where you two laugh about it?" She bolted, actually ran out of the ballroom, heels clicking like a countdown to detonation. What do you think happens next? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you're loving this story, smash that subscribe button, because the next line of action is going to blow your mind. Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. Last time on the most insane revenge story you've ever heard. I stood in the middle of Connecticut's most exclusive gala, holding a USB drive containing every dirty secret my husband had buried. Thaddeus Langston, the man who publicly humiliated me, who told 200 people he'd rather kiss his dog than kiss me, was about to learn what happens when you underestimate a woman from Providence. His mistress had just fled the ballroom. The crowd was dead silent. And me? I was just getting started. Hope you're still glued to the story with your popcorn. And hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is absolutely wild. Now, let's finish what we started. Thad lunged for the USB drive. I stepped back smoothly, holding it high. "Touch me in front of all these witnesses, and assault charges will be the least of your problems." He froze. His face was purple, actually purple, veins bulging in his neck. That carefully maintained composure crumbling like wet sand. "Lennox, give me that. Now!" His voice was low, threatening. The voice he probably used on people who owed him money. It didn't work on me anymore. Why? Worried about what else is on here. I tilted my head, examining the small drive like it was a fascinating artifact. Should I mention the $340,000 you transferred to Persephone's account over 6 months, labeled as marketing consultation, when she can barely spell fiscal responsibility? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were out now. Filming. Recording. This wasn't just gossip anymore, it was evidence. Senator Whitmore stepped forward, his political instincts kicking in. "Perhaps we should take this somewhere private." No. My voice cut through his attempt at damage control. Privacy is what men like Thaddeus count on. Privacy is how they get away with everything. I turned to face the crowd. All of them. The women who'd whispered about my cheap roots. The men who'd patted Thad's back while ignoring my contributions. Cordelia, standing near the back, her face a mask of aristocratic horror. "You all laughed 30 seconds ago," I said, my voice steady, "when my husband humiliated me, when he treated me like garbage in front of Connecticut's finest. You thought it was funny." Silence. Uncomfortable, squirming silence. You know what's actually funny? Every single person in this room has benefited from my work. The Berkshire merger that saved half your portfolios? Mine. The tax restructuring that kept Langston Holdings from bankruptcy 3 years ago? Mine. The strategy that tripled the value of your precious family legacy. I looked directly at Cordelia. "Oh, me." Thad found his voice again. "You're hysterical. Everyone can see." I'm calculated. I interrupted. "There's a difference. Hysterical is what you'll be when the FBI shows up Monday morning with questions about your offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. The ones you forgot to declare on your taxes for the past 4 years. His face went from purple to gray. "That's tax evasion. For those of you keeping score at home, I announced cheerfully, federal crime, 5 years minimum. But Dad's not stupid. He used shell corporations to hide the money, which adds conspiracy charges, and wire fraud, since he moved funds electronically." I smiled at him. "Your father's lawyers are good, darling, but they're not make federal charges disappear good." Kingswell Hampton, who'd laughed the loudest at Thad's joke, suddenly looked very interested in his shoes. Vivian had stopped recording. Her phone hung limp in her hand. Senator Whitmore was quietly backing toward the exit. "But wait," I said, raising a finger like I just remembered something. "I haven't even told you the best part yet." Thad's eyes widened. There was fear there now. Real fear. See, I didn't do this alone. I'm smart, but I'm not dismantle a multi-billion-dollar empire by myself smart. I needed help. Legal help. Financial help. Help from someone who knew exactly how the Langston family operated. I paused for dramatic effect. Someone who hated them as much as I'd learned to. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Who could possibly? The ballroom doors opened, and in walked Thaddeus Langston III, Thad's father, the patriarch, the man who'd built Langston Holdings into what it was today. Except he wasn't walking alone. Next to him was a woman about 60 years old, elegant in emerald silk, with silver hair and eyes that looked exactly like Thad's. "Everyone," I announced. "Meet Cordelia's predecessor, the first Mrs. Langston, Davina." The room exploded. Cordelia actually stumbled backward, gripping a marble column for support. Thad looked like he'd seen a ghost. "That's impossible. You're dead," Dad said. "Your father says a lot of things," Davina replied, her voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Most of them lies." Thaddeus III looked older than his 72 years, but there was steel in his spine. "My son," he said quietly, "you're exactly like me at your age. Arrogant, entitled, cruel to the people who loved you most." He gestured to Davina. "I destroyed my first marriage because I thought I deserved better. Treated this brilliant woman like property. Threw her away for someone younger, flashier, someone who looked better in family photos." Cordelia's face was stone, but her hands shook. "And you know what I learned?" Thaddeus III continued. "That the person you discard becomes your biggest regret. Davina forgave me, eventually, after 30 years of groveling, but she never forgot." Davina stepped forward, addressing the crowd. "When Lennox reached out to me 6 months ago, I knew exactly who she was. The daughter I never had. The woman my son was destroying the same way his father tried to destroy me." I felt tears prickling my eyes. "Stop it, Lennox. Not now. We've been working together," Davina continued, documenting everything, building a legal case, waiting for Thaddeus IV to make the fatal mistake that would let us strike. She looked at her son, her biological son who didn't even know she existed, with something between pity and disgust. "Publicly humiliating your wife at Connecticut's biggest social event? That was a mistake, darling. That was the moment you proved you learned nothing, that you're beyond redemption." Thad was shaking now. "This is insane. Dad, you can't possibly." "I can, and I have." Thaddeus III pulled out his phone, tapped something, and showed it to his son. I've transferred controlling interest of Langston Holdings to a trust, managed by Davina, Lennox, and myself. You're officially removed from all executive positions, effective immediately. You can't do that. I'm majority shareholder. I absolutely can. The old man's voice was ice. You were supposed to be better than me. Instead, you're worse. At least I felt shame. You just feel entitled. Vivian found her voice. What about me? I'm family, too. You filmed your sister-in-law's humiliation for social media. Davina said flatly. You're on probation. One more stunt, and you're out, too. Cordelia finally spoke, her voice trembling. Thaddeus, how could you do this? After everything you what, Cordy? Helped destroy my first wife? Raise my son to be a monster? You're staying in the family because divorce at my age is messy. But your influence ends tonight. It was brutal, surgical. 30 years of Langston family dysfunction exposed in 5 minutes. And I was the scalpel. Thad turned to me, and for the first time, I saw something other than arrogance in his eyes. Desperation. Lennox, please, we can fix this. I'll end things with Persephone. We'll go to counseling. I'll make it right. No. One word. Simple. Final. You don't get to make it right. Thaddeus, you don't get redemption or second chances or a heartfelt apology that earns forgiveness. You get consequences. I handed the USB drive to a man in the corner who'd been watching everything with interest. Agent Declan Rourke, FBI White Collar Crimes Division. He'd been posing as a waiter all night. Agent Rourke will be very interested in the files, I said, especially the communications about insider trading related to the Blackwell merger. Thad's knees actually buckled. Kingswell caught him. That's 15 years minimum. Thad whispered. Yes, I agreed. It is. The next 72 hours were chaos. News outlets went insane. Langston Dynasty in freefall. Billionaire heir arrested on federal charges. The woman who destroyed Connecticut's most powerful family. That last headline was my favorite. My phone rang nonstop. Reporters, lawyers, people from my past, suddenly wanting to reconnect. I ignored most of it, but I did take one call. Ms. Ashford, a woman's voice, professional but warm. This is Gianna Castellano from Castellano Ventures. We're a female-led investment firm, and we're very impressed with your work. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership? I was sitting in Davina's guest house. She'd insisted I stay with her until the dust settled, wearing sweatpants and eating ice cream straight from the container. What kind of partnership? The kind where you run your own division. Full autonomy, equity stake. We want to invest in women, like you, Lennox. Women who've been underestimated their whole lives and are ready to prove the world wrong. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. When can we meet? 6 months later, I stood in my new office on the 45th floor of a Manhattan high-rise. Ashford Capital Management. My name on the door. My rules. My empire. We specialize in investing in female-founded companies that traditional firms overlooked. In 6 months, we closed $400 million in funding. Our portfolio was outperforming the market by 18%. I was on the cover of Forbes. The Phoenix of Finance. How Lennox Ashford rose from the ashes of scandal. Davina was my partner. Thaddeus III, our silent investor. He claimed he was making amends for raising a monster. And Thad? He was in FCI Otisville, a federal prison in upstate New York. Convicted on 12 counts of securities fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. 15 years, no parole possibility for at least 8. Persephone cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. Last I heard, she was working at a Starbucks in Newark. Cordelia lost most of her social standing. Turns out Connecticut high society doesn't forgive public humiliation, even when you're the victim. Vivian actually reached out to apologize. We met for coffee. She cried, said she'd been taught that cruelty was strength. I told her she had time to unlearn that. We're not friends, but we're not enemies. 1 year after the gala, I received a letter, prison mail, from Thad. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Lennox, I know you'll probably never read this. Or if you do, You'll laugh and burn it. I deserve that. I've had a lot of time to think about who I was, who I became. The man who told you he'd rather kiss his dog than kiss you. That man was a coward, a fool, someone so terrified of being seen as weak that he destroyed the only person who actually cared about him. You were right about everything. I was entitled, cruel. I took your brilliance and called it luck. I took your love and called it desperation. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know you won. Not just a legal case or the money or the company. You won because you're free, and I'm still in a cage I built myself long before I came here. I hope you're happy, Lennox. Really, you earned it. Thaddeus. I folded the letter carefully, put it in my desk drawer, and I never thought about it again. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. If I feel guilty for destroying a family, for sending my husband to prison, for becoming the woman who proved that revenge isn't always toxic. Sometimes it's justice. And you know what I tell them? No, not even a little bit. Because here's what I learned. The world respects power, not kindness, not patience, not the woman who smiles through humiliation, hoping things will get better. The world respects the woman who burns it down and builds something better from the ashes. I didn't destroy the Langston family. They destroyed themselves with arrogance and cruelty. I just held up the mirror, and now I help women who were exactly where I was. Women told they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. Women who've been kissing dogs their whole lives while being treated like they should be grateful for it. I show them how to bite back. Last month, I went back to Providence, to the laundromat where I grew up. It's under new ownership, but the apartment upstairs is the same. I knocked on the door. A young girl answered, maybe 10 years old, with uncertain eyes and second-hand clothes. Is your mom home? I asked. She nodded, called for her mother. When a woman appeared, tired, wary, working class, I handed her an envelope. What's this? Scholarship fund. For your daughter. Full ride to any college she gets into. No strings. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Why? Who are you? I smiled. Someone who used to live here. Someone who knows what it's like to be hungry for more. I didn't leave my name. Just walked away, feeling lighter than I had in years. Because that's the thing about revenge that nobody tells you. The best revenge isn't just destroying the people who hurt you. It's becoming so powerful that you can lift up the people they would have destroyed next. It's proving that the girl from Providence, the woman they laughed at, the wife they humiliated, was always the most dangerous person in the room. They just didn't know it until it was too late. So here's my question for you, watching this right now. Who underestimated you? Who made you feel small? Who told you that you'd never be good enough? Drop their name in the comments. Not for revenge, but for accountability. For the reminder that you're still here, still fighting, still proving them wrong every single day. And if the story inspired you, do 3 things. Hit that like button if you believe in women supporting women. Subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to stay down. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. Because your story isn't over. And neither is mine. We're just getting started. The end.